Hi, maimbutag sa tanan, especially to my students there. My name is Pamela Cueco. I teach at Norsumo Binay Campus for business students. I'm handling the SBA HRDM or the major in Human Resource Development Management. So this video tutorial is exclusively for managerial accounting students. Guys, this is for you. I hope you are well and alright bisag ingon ani atong sitwasyon karon. We are in a lockdown. We teachers, as much as we can, we try to reach out to you for quality education's sake. So this video tutorial is made exclusively for the managerial accounting's final examination test. I hope this will give you A's and convenience in trying to solve our final exams. So basically, our final examination coverage for managerial accounting is divided in two parts. The first part, it tackles on decision making or being decisive. So that's a very important characteristic and skill that each business student must have, not only the managers and the business owner per se, but all people who needs to have choices or proper choices for each alternative or for each situation. So we tackle on two parts. We have the routine decision making and we have the non-routine decision making. This video is exclusive for the first part, which is the routine decision making. So guys, I hope it will be helpful. Let me pull out my slide here. I have created a slide for you. Okay. Alright. So this is our first tutorial for the first part. So decision making business. What is it? Making decisions is something that cannot be taken lightly. For it can make or break a business or anything. All managerial activities require decisiveness. Importante yung marunong gumawa ng desisyon. Either it could be fixed or flexible, to be able to bend or blend a decision depending on the set of alternatives presented by each situation. So the first part of our test tackles on the routine decisions. So routine decisions are decisions made under specific process and certainty. So may proseso at may kasiguruhan. So decisions are recurring, paulit-ulit, and there are already sets of program responses. Usually, companies create manual of procedure, or what we call SOPs, standard operating procedure, to guide managers to activities that are part of the normal operating cycle or day-to-day activity of the business. Example for this routine decision are replenishment of inventory. We know in our accounting the two types of ways of the replenishing inventory, the FIFO, first in, first out, or the LIFO, last in, first out. Or it could be sending delinquency notes or the past due or the overdue notes to customers, or simply implementing a raise to employees. This adheres to a manual. So routine decision making, there is a manual to be followed, and each decisions are in recurring state which is normal to day-to-day operations of the business. So we tackle on specifics of the routine decision making. So one of the specifics of this is the ABC, or the activity-based costing, or the ABC accounting. So what is this? This is an allocation method, a type of programmed or manualized method of allocation that recognizes the fact that the cost of objects like products or services do not actually consume indirect costs, but it is the related activities done in support of producing those products or those services rendered. So in other words, simplify, activity-based costing or ABC costing is different from traditional type of costing. Traditional type of costing, the product or the service absorbs all the costs that is utilized or consumed on its making or its producing. But here in activity-based costing, we allocate budgeted costs for each activity. Recognize that each activity consumes costs, and this is very helpful in managers and business owners alike to be able to monitor which activities are expensive and which are costly, or which activities are inexpensive or less costly. So example for that is incurring electricity expense. So, or paying our electric bill, in other words. It is not the unit or the product being produced that is consuming the electricity, but rather the machines used in producing the unit of products. That means to say, if you have a highly efficient machine, that's the reason why you have lesser electric bill. So it is not the product or the service that dictates or determines the amount of electricity, but the machine that you are using as to its efficiency in consuming electricity. So another is the amount of rental fee. So not the unit of product determine how much the company will pay for its rental space fee or the real property tax. So what's the cost driver for real property tax or rental space payment is not the product or the service rendered per se, but the area, the amount of area of the factory or the business itself. So it's the cost driver. The cost driver makes the cost higher or lower depending on the size, in this case for the area of the factory or the business. Hence, activity-based costing is which is under the routine decision making, is focus will be or should be focused first and to identify the different activity level. So we have to understand that there are 4 types of activity level in business. We will be discussing it in the next slide. The second is to relate or trace the relationship of this activity level to the cost object or the cost driver. The cost driver example for that are the number of setups. So if a product or a service needs a setup, then the number of setups will determine the amount of cost or expense, whether it is high or low, depending on the number of setups performed. The number of inspection, another example. So the more inspection performed, the greater is the cost. The material quality and quantity of materials used will determine also the cost. That's another driver. And then we have the last, labor and engineering hours, which also will determine how many hours or how many engineering hours are consumed in performing or making the product or rendering the service, and other examples. So we come up with computing the unit cost using the ABC method of allocation. So therefore, these are the 4 types of activity levels that I have mentioned a while ago. So I hope this will be magamit niyo siya sa inyong background understanding on what unsay kalainan sa activity-based costing o sa traditional costing. Sa traditional costing, gi-divide ra nato tanang cost sa actual sa number of units that is being produced. We don't monitor the cost according to activity levels. Sa activity-based costing, we control the cost by identifying the levels or the type of activities that is performed in creating, producing, or manufacturing a certain product in order to monitor and control, manage the budget of expenses. So the first level is the unit level. This refers to activities that must be done for each unit of product. of production. So for each unit item, this the performance of this activity will be good for only one unit. For example, in general, machine and assembly cost. For cars, if the car is customized, it's not the mass production cars, then the machine hours or the assembly cost will be absorbed by that unit only. The second level is the batch level. These activities are performed for each batch of products or services. Batch means to say in bundle or perhaps in mass production. So performance of this activity will be already be good for each one batch. Example for this batch level activity is setup costs, quality assurance or QA, and receiving costs. Batch activity level recognizes that there are numerous items or numerous products to divide the cost of the batch. So we go with the product sustaining. Product sustaining activity level are activities that are performed to support the entire product line. Example, the product line is clothing. So performance of this activity will already be good for the product line. Example for that is the product design, modification costs, or per se engineering costs. If you have R&D or research and development, it will be an umbrella cost to be allocated to the entire product line. And lastly is the facility sustaining level. So these are activities that are required for the entire manufacturing process to occur or the business to occur. Performance of such activity will already be good for the whole factory or for the whole business. For example for the facility sustaining level, activity level, is factory or business maintenance. So it's an umbrella that is affecting all products and services that are produced by the entire business. Another example for facility sustaining level, activity level, is the general accounting and the human resource management cost. So to compute, here comes our computation. This will be very helpful for you, I hope, in answering your part 1 of your final exam. So computing for unit cost using ABC method or activity-based costing. Let me just adjust. Okay, so to illustrate the problem solving for this non-routine decision-making technique, here is Abra's Corporation with the following data. So given data for Abra Corporation, we have cost pools. So cost pools are 4 types. Cost pools refers to the activities that are performed by Abra in order to deliver items. So we have setup, machine setup, inspection, material handling, and engineering. So Abra have set up or decided to have a budget for each activity. And they identify the cost driver that makes the expense go high or low or maintain, and the budgeted number of activities to hit the budget cost or the budgeted amount for each activity. So that we first have the first cost pool, which is the machine setup, with a budget of 40,000 pesos, and expectation will have this 40,000 pesos will be covering 2,000 number of setup. So this is good for 2,000 setup, therefore. And the second activity or cost pool is inspection with a budgeted cost of 260,000 pesos. So the cost driver is the number of inspection. So in this budgeted cost for inspection, it is expected to have 6,500 number of inspection in order to hit the target budget of 260,000 pesos. The third activity or cost pool is material handling. The amount for material handling for the budgeted cost for material handling is 160,000 pesos. So the cost driver is the number of material movements. So the budgeted activity is expected to have 16,000 material movements for it to be able to hit the target budget of 160,000 pesos. Lastly, the engineering activity with a budget of 100,000 pesos. It's expected to render 2,000 labor or engineering hours to be able to hit the budget of 100,000 pesos. So the total cost for the entire 4 types of activities for ABRA is 560,000 pesos for ABRA to be able to produce or manufacture an item. So fortunately, ABRA have 2 jobs completed. So the given is job number 1 and job number 2. These 2 jobs have different actual direct material usage and actual direct labor usage. So for job 1, it has consumed 5,000 pesos for direct material usage, actual direct material usage. And it has consumed 2,000 pesos worth of direct labor. So this refers to the labor expense in the actual creation of the product or the actual manufacturing of the product. Job number 1 had completed or produced successfully 100 units of items. In job number 2, on the other hand, job number 2 have consumed direct materials for the amount of 8,000 pesos, and it has consumed direct labor with the amount of 4,000 pesos. Job number 2, on the other hand, had produced twice as much as the units produced by job number 1. It had produced or completed 200 units. Okay, so what's the required? The requirement for ABC method is to determine how much is the cost per unit product for each job. So step number 1, compute for the predetermined rate per cost pool, or for each activity, how much is the rate per activity. So the first activity with a budget of the computation here at the middle, the machine setup with a budget of 40,000 pesos divided by 2,000 number of setup targeted will give you 20 pesos per setup. The next is inspection with a budget of 260,000 pesos divided by 6,500 inspection expected. That gives us a predetermined rate for each inspection of 40 pesos, 40 per inspection. Then the third one is the material handling, which gives us the budgeted allowance of 160,000 pesos divided by 16,000 material movements will give us 10 pesos per material movement. And last one activity is the engineering, which gives us 100,000 pesos budgeted amount divided by the expected 2,000 labor hours or engineering hours give us 50 pesos or 50 pesos per engineering hour. This is just an illustration, an example. The predetermined rate is pretty much very small, but for illustration purposes only, we use this data. Okay, so step number 2, when we know the predetermined rate, we have to apply it to the actual level of the cost driver per job. So job number 1, there are actual levels of activity performed, and job number 2 as well. So all we need to do in order to calculate for the total cost for job number 1, or the total cost allocation for each job, we have to multiply the predetermined rate for each activity times the actual level in each job. So for instance, 20 pesos per setup. Sa job activity number 1, usara ka setup ang nahitabo. So 1 times 20 will be 20 pesos. The next level or the next activity will be inspection. Ka-20 gi-inspect, 20 times inspected. So each inspection is worth 40 pesos. So that's 40 pesos times 20 will be 800 pesos. And then we have material handling. So ika-30 gi-move ang materials. Each time the material is moved, there is a cost of 10 pesos per movement. So that means to say 10 pesos times 30, it will be giving you 300 pesos. And lastly, the engineering hour that is consumed, or the labor hour that is consumed, is 10 hours. So basically, we multiply it with 50 pesos predetermined rate for each hour times 10 hours, it will be 500 pesos per hour. So with a total summation of 1,620,000 total cost allocation for job number 1. So the same we'll be doing with job number 2. We multiply the actual level of activity times the predetermined rate. We arrive at a summation of 1,560,000 pesos cost. So the last part or the last step will be determine the cost per unit for each job, which is the requirement of our part 1 of our exam. So in order to determine the unit product of each job, we have to add the material utility or the actual material use and the direct labor use to the cost allocation that we have identified in the previous slide. So we know in the given that job number 1 consumes 5,000 materials, actual materials, and 2,000 actual direct labor. So we add up our computed 1,620 pesos cost allocation, which is the total summation of the 4 activities, and then we come up with 8,620 pesos total summation for job number 1 only. So we know that job number 1 was able to successfully produce 100 units completed of product. So that means to say we allocate the cost amounting to 8,620 pesos divided by 100 units completed will give us 86 pesos and 20 centavos unit amount or unit cost for each item produced in job number 1. So each of the 100 pieces or item in job number 1 is costing us 86 pesos and 2 centavos. So let's proceed with job number 2. The same we'll be doing in job number 2 to compute for the unit cost for each item produced in job number 2. So we have to add also the actual material use, which is 8,000, the actual direct labor use, which is the expense for labor, 4,000, plus the computed cost allocation using ABC method, which is 1,560 pesos. This is the summation of all the 4 activities performed. We come up with 13,560 pesos, which is the total cost of job in performing job number 2. So job number 2 fortunately have 200 units of item completed. So in order to allocate the cost, which is 13,560, we have to divide it with 200,000 units. We arrive at 67 pesos and 80 centavos unit cost. So therefore, this answers our requirement. So therefore, in the situation of a corporation, the cost of items produced in job number 1 is 86 pesos and 20 centavos, while in job number 2, the cost unit per item product is 67 pesos and 80 centavos. It's henceforth, it's much cheaper. The items produced in job number 2 is cheaper and less expensive compared to job number 1. Job number 1 item is more expensive by 18 pesos and 20 centavos compared to job number 2. Why is it? Why is that? That is because job number 2 is much more effective and efficient in producing more. So even if it's more expensive, the total cost is 13,560 compared to 8,620. The overall, but then since it produces more, the amount for the cost for each unit is divided by more products and services. The implication for this is for business managers and business owners. The selling price for items in job number 2 will be cheaper compared to a more expensive selling price in job number 2 because job number 1, because this 86.20 pesos will be added with a markup, and this 67.80 pesos will be added with a markup to determine the selling price of the item or the product completed. Okay, so I guess that's it. Thank you. Let me stop my share. Okay, I hope that I give you the basics for routine decision making. Those are only basics, but I am really hopeful in your part that it will give you less stress, convenience, and ease in solving our problems, especially in our final examination. So I miss you guys, and so I hope you will be able to complete our final examination with A's and flying colors. And see you in our next video for non-routine decision making, that is comprising with 3 items or decision making for accept or reject, shut down or maintain or drop, and sell or process further. So, see you in the next video, guys. Have a great day.